Welcome to this Saturday travel and history tip, and we will be continuing our northbound journey on U.S. Highway 83, the road to nowhere. We started out in Part 1 in Shamrock, Texas, Part 2 in Liberal, Kansas, Part 3 at Monument Rocks, Part 4 in Oakley, Kansas, Part 5 we took you to a Frank Lloyd Wright home and the Bessie Tree Nursery. In Part 6 we took you to Pierce, South Dakota and the state capitol. Part 7 we took you along Highway 1804 and Highway 1806 to discover exciting places along the Missouri River near Fort Pierre and Pierre. In Part 8, we took you to the South Dakota Historical Society Museum to see the Verendrye plates. And now for Part 9, and a little study on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, which encompasses land area in both North Dakota and South Dakota. The reservation was designated prior to the division of the two states. This is a lot like the Navajo Indian Reservation, which crosses state line. We're going to focus today a little on Sitting Bull. Born around 1831, Sitting Bull is characterized as personable yet stubborn. He was a strong warrior and chief who led battles against other Indians and the U.S. Army. Sitting Bull performed for 2 years in Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show, and we talked about Buffalo Bill Cody in Part 4 when we visited Oakley. The Standing Rock Sioux Reservation tribal police actually shot him on December 15, 1890. A shabby marker once marked where Sitting Bull's grave was at Fort Yates in North Dakota. Legend has it that in 1953, townsfolk from Mobridge, South Dakota, stole his bones from the ramshackle gravesite. Mobridge constructed a 20-ton concrete monument to their hero, and we will be going to both of his grave sites. There is a site in North Dakota that we have visited, but it is not along U.S. Highway 83, but it is significant in the life of Sitting Bull. It's called the Fort Buford State Historical Site. It is located adjacent to Fort Union. The fort was built in 1866 to protect the confluence of the Missouri and Yellowstone rivers and surrounding territory from Indian raids. Sitting Bull led several of these raids. Named for Union commander of the Battle of Gettysburg, Major John Buford, the fort housed 6 companies of soldiers at its peak. The fort also served as a detention center for tribal leaders and those who fought, being relocated to reservations. 2 famous leaders detained here include Chief Joseph and Sitting Bull. One of the buildings that can be toured is the field officers' quarters, where on July 29, 1881, Sitting Bull met with Major David Brotherton to surrender. He did so by handing his Winchester rifle to his young son, Crowfoot, for him to hand the rifle to the major. Well, now that you have a little background, let's move on. Last week we were at the South Dakota Historical Society Museum, and in there they had a tremendous amount of information about the Native American people. They had a lot of information about what are called ghost dances, and this talked about the dance of hope, and I'm not going to get into that part today, but I just want to mention it. Many of you have maybe heard of the ghost dance. Reportedly, the last ghost dance was held in the southern section of the Badlands, which can be toured. And we were actually fortunate to go to this section of Badlands National Park several years ago. And as you can see by this sign, it was a former bombing range. That's kind of exciting. The ghost dance scared many whites and some reservation officials who called in troops heading for Pine Ridge. And this is where the last ghost dance was reportedly held, in the southern section of the Badlands. As the soldiers disarmed the band, a gun went off. The troops opened fire, shooting both the Sioux and each other. More than 150 Indian men, women, and children were killed at Wounded Knee on December 29, 1890. Others died later of injuries or the cold, and 25 soldiers died too. The massacre was the end of the hope for the return of the buffalo. And we have actually been to the massacre site of Wounded Knee there in South Dakota. This sign reads, on December 15, 1890, Chief Sitting Bull was killed by Lieutenant Bullhead of the Standing Rock Indian Police. 40 of the Sitting Bull's braves escaped from Grand River and joined Chief Bigfoot's band on Deep Creek to camp and ghost dance on the South Fork of the Cheyenne River. The history of Wounded Knee and the 7th Cavalry and the Sioux tribes is definitely worth looking into. Sitting Bull, a hunk papa warrior turned medicine man, had great power among the Sioux. He never accepted the newcomers to the plains. He did not fight at Little Bighorn, but used the Sundance to envision white men falling to the Sioux. In 1890, agents who thought Sitting Bull provoked the Sioux to do the ghost dance tried to arrest him. He resisted and the police shot and killed him. Trained to perform upon gunfire at Wild West shows, Sitting Bull's horse did tricks as 7 followers and 6 policemen died in the shootout. I bet that was quite a scene. At the museum, they had Sitting Bull's buffalo skull, which was placed on a medicine pole for the ghost dance at Standing Rock Reservation. Missionary Mary C. Collins, a friend of Sitting Bull, removed it from the pole on hearing of his death. Mary Collins was a missionary arrived fighter and a proponent for Native American rights in the Dakota Territory of the United States of America. She spent 35 years of her life living among the Sioux tribe, acting as a teacher, translator, and diplomat between the Sioux and white settlers. She was a noted friend and correspondent of Sitting Bull, one of the most famous Native Americans in the United States history. Despite her actions and lifelong commitment to peaceful relations with the Sioux, Collins is a relatively unknown character in American history. We traveled along the American Scenic Byway between Mobridge and Fort Yates, the two locations of Sitting Bull's graves. Welcome to the Standing Rock National Native American Scenic Byway, an 86-mile route which follows a stretch of highway that climbs up and down the stunning Missouri River, breaks and runs past buffalo herds and Eagle's Nest. History comes alive on this journey as the great Lakota spiritual leader Sitting Bull lived and died here. Meriwether Lewis and William Clark stopped 14 times. Famous mountain men like Jim Bridger and Jedediah Smith passed through, and it is the final resting place of Sacagawea. In this sign, they call her Sacagawea, and you'll find that her name is spelled and pronounced all different kinds of ways. We encourage you to follow the byway and visit the sites near the byway for an exciting experience and a better understanding of our culture. And we have obviously taken another diversion off U.S. Highway 83 just to the west of the Missouri River to see these sites. We took the turnoff west of Mobridge to Sitting Bull and Sacagawea monuments. And here is Sacagawea's monument. I will do at least one Saturday travel tip devoted to her. Her gravesite is unknown, and where she actually died and ended up is a mystery. But this sign claims that she died and is buried somewhere near Fort Manuel. But here is Sitting Bull's giant grave marker, 1831-1890. Sitting Bull was born on the Grand River a few miles west of Mobridge. His tragic end came at the very place he was born. He was shot when being arrested because of the alleged involvement with the ghost dance craze. Sitting Bull was originally buried at Fort Yates, North Dakota on April 8, 1953. Surviving relatives, with the aid of the Dakota Memorial Association, moved his remains to the present location and dedicated the memorial burial site April 11, 1953. Each town has a different story. We drove on to Fort Yates. We continued our travels and parked at an RV park north of Fort Yates and went to the Standing Rock Administrative Services building. Fort Yates is the tribal headquarters for the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. And as you can see by this map, how the reservation crosses the North and South Dakota borders. Overlooking the Oahe Reservoir is the Standing Rock Monument, from which the Standing Rock Agency derived its name. According to legend, the stone is the petrification of the Arikara, wife of a Dakota man, with her child on her back. There was also a sign to Lewis and Clark, but it had seen its better days, as you can tell. And here was this great sign about Sitting Bull's life. He was a warrior, a chief, a man of vision. He was born about 1831 on the Grand River, at a location called Many Caches, named after the many food storage bins that had been dug there. At age 14, he joined a raid against the Crows. To honor his son's victorious return, his father gave him his own name, Sitting Bull, and took the name Jumping Bull. This fierce tenacity was a characteristic of Sitting Bull's throughout his life. He became a renowned warrior and leader of the Strong Heart Society. He became the head chief in 1857. He fought to unify the Dakota and Lakota against white expansion, and to keep the land of the Lakotas as a sacred inheritance for their children and children's children. His visions and policies attracted many followers, leading to the formation of the Great Camp that in 1876 defeated the 7th Cavalry at the Battle of Greasy Grass. After the battle, Sitting Bull and his followers moved northward towards Wood Mountain in present-day Saskatchewan, Canada, where they resided for 5 years. Sitting Bull had 5 wives over his lifetime: Light Hair, who died at childbirth; Snow on Her, whom he divorced; Red Woman, who died of sickness; Four Robes, and Seen by the Nation, sisters who stayed with him until his death. He was a devoted father who cherished his children, among whom were Standing Holy, Many Horses, and Crowfoot. And we heard about Crowfoot, as he was his son that he handed the rifle to during the surrender at Fort Buford. In July 1881, Sitting Bull and his followers returned from Canada and surrendered to federal authorities at Fort Buford. To isolate him from the people and to punish him for the Battle of Little Bighorn, he was imprisoned at Fort Randall, Dakota Territory. After being allowed to return to Standing Rock in 1883, he briefly toured with Buffalo Bill's Wild West Show. Despite his immense popularity on the tour, which traveled throughout the United States and Canada, he chose to return to Standing Rock, where his tenacity in speaking out for his people's rights made him a thorn in the side of the Indian agent. In 1886, he helped dedicate the Standing Rock Monument along with Firecloud. His band eventually settled in the Grand River, just a few miles from his birthplace. And this is the gravesite at Fort Yates. It has been redone and looks very nice. A revered leader, chief, husband, and father, loyal to his people. There was also this marker. It's the core discovery, 200 years to the future, peace and friendship. And this is the same peace medal that we showed you in last Saturday's Travel and History Tip, where we saw one of the actual Jefferson peace medals in the museum display. What treaty had the Lakota made with the white man that we have broken? Not one. What treaty had the white man ever made with us that they have ever kept. Not one. When I was a boy, the Lakota owned the world. The sun rose and set on their land. They set 10,000 men to battle. Where are the warriors today? Who slew them? Where are our lands? Who owns them? What law have I broken? Is it wrong for me to love my own? Is it wicked for me because my skin is red? Because I am a Lakota? Because I was born where my father lived? Because I would die for my people and my country? Sitting Bull. American history. Learn it. Love it. Appreciate it. Don't let them steal our history. Treasure our American history. And as we returned to the RV park, we saw this sign, just as a little comic relief, because this has been kind of a heavy Saturday travel and history tip. It said, Deer Head Collection Site. Ugh, kind of weird. If you appreciate our content, tell others and repost on your social platforms. Help us build our channels. Thank you.